Thank you for joining us on this episode of Legal Angle with Emmanuel, the Law Holloway. My guest today is Judge Cynthia Ebner, a municipal court judge in Franklin County, Ohio. Today we're going to be talking about real estate and the legal aspects to consider when buying or selling real estate. We all need real estate for shelter or for running business. We are either living in one, renting one, or doing business in one. So, real estate is part of everyone's life. Judge Hebner will be educating us today on things to know or things to consider when thinking of buying or selling real estate. Welcome to the show, Judge Hebner.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Happy to be here.
Uh, and thank you for even making it for this time because I know that you've had a hectic day, over 90 cases.
Yeah,
How do you even handle that?
we start early. We had about 94 cases this morning, and it varies from the minor misdemeanors all the way up to the highest we handle in municipal court are charges that carry up to 6 months and or $1,000 fine. And so those are like thefts. So it's a busy day.
And here you are, still looking fresh as if it's 7 a.m.
Oh,
Thank you for making this.
consider I got back over here about in my office about 2:45 for the
Wow.
clock. So yeah,
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
sure, I'd be happy to. So I was born and raised in Columbus, and I attended the Columbus Tour Academy, which is a Jewish parochial school. And then from there, I went to Eastmore High School for ninth grade through 12th grade. And then I graduated from the Ohio State University. And I graduated with a degree in real estate and finance. And about my second to last quarter at Ohio State, I took a real estate law class. And I never had intention to go to law school. I was always just going to go. We have a family business. I was going to go in the family business, which is real estate. And I thought, maybe I'll go to law school. This stuff makes sense. I enjoy this. So I actually took a year off to relax and work in the family business. And then I was able to go and went to Capital University Law School. And then I took a semester abroad in London, and I studied with the Notre Dame and studied a lot of European economic community law. And then I came back and started my own shingle kind of thing. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I noticed that you went to England for a year. What was that like?
well, it was shy of a year, but it was really enjoyable. I had such an opportunity to see and understand and experience living abroad. And so I lived in London for a bit. And then after my semester was finished, some friends of mine from law school that I met in London, we just toured the countryside, and we went off the continent, and we went to Poland, or not to Poland. We went to Germany, and we went to France, and we went to Austria, and we just had a good old time. And then I came. Then I had to uh, realize that I had to come back to take the bar exam. So that's when I set in.
Back to reality.
That's right. That's right.
And from your story, you had a bachelor's in business administration and real estate and finance. So your intention was to go back to the family business. Then you segue into becoming an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
How did your parent react to that?
um, they were wondering, why do that? We have a business, and we have it kind of set up for you, and you should just come and work with us. But then I also wanted to make my own way. And so when I was a third year in law school, I decided I wanted to get more hands-on experience. And I interned with the public defender's office, and I was an intern there. I was also the judicial intern for municipal court. So I had the opportunity to meet with all the judges and get to know them, because I would help them with their decisions and to help write what they wanted, what they asked me to find out, do the research for them. So I got to know the municipal court pretty intimately. And I got to know the prosecutors and the judges and the other attorneys. So after I graduated law school, it wasn't that big of a leap for me to open my own shingle. And because I felt very comfortable knowing everybody, because I worked with everybody for at least 6 months to 8 months. So it was very comfortable.
That was amazing. So even while you were in law school, you already had a leg in the municipal court.
Yeah.
And about 15 years later, you became a judge of the same court.
I
Wow.
like to say it was 15, but ironic, it was 22 years later.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Oh, my.
yeah, it
Right.
was, it was funny because the judge that I worked for, she was on the 13th floor, and my courtroom is 13A. And I thought to myself, if I ever got to be a judge, if I ever got there, I think it'd be cool if I was a judge on the 13th floor, because that's where I started. And
Wow.
it was really, I felt like it was full circle for me.
It is full circle. Kismet.
Yeah.
Yes. And after you started your own law practice straight out of law school, you also started a real estate company.
I started a real estate company. My family's in real estate, as I mentioned. So I thought it would be prudent for me to get my real estate license. And then after some years having my real estate license, I thought it'd be prudent to get my broker's license. And so that's what I did. So I got my real estate license. Actually, I think I was like 21. And then I went to college and law school. And then later on, I thought I'll get my broker's license just to supplement things in case I wanted to do, some transactions with my family or for others. I could
And
easily.
did you ever do any transactions, or how were you able to balance those two careers?
Well, um, it was, knowledge is one, and you can never go wrong by studying and have other degrees. It always can help you in the long run. And with my knowledge, I was able to buy my first house, and then I was able to buy some other property later on. And um, when you're a broker, you actually get the commission just yourself. So if you represent yourself, you don't have to split the commission. But unless you split it with the other side, but you don't have to split several times. So, but
That makes sense.
right.
So, yeah, for someone on the outside who doesn't have the real life and professional experience as you in real estate, what should they consider when thinking of buying a house or a property? What are
Well,
those things they should consider?
I think the first thing to consider is you've heard the saying location, location, location. So that's the first thing. Where do you want to live? Second is what can you afford? And with figuring out what you can afford, that takes some due diligence. And unless you're going to self finance it and you got cash, you're going to need to go to the bank and get a loan. And there's various types of loans you can get, but people want to know that you have a steady income. And so they're going to look to your bank statements. They're going to look to last couple years of your tax returns. They're going to want to know that they can count on you repaying that loan, right? So it's actually a very cumbersome uh, process. So don't think you're going to do it in just a couple days. So make sure that you meet with uh, loan advisors, your bank, or your credit union, and everybody has a little something different that they require. So you're gonna need to get some take some time to accumulate all the paperwork that's necessary. Now, once you got the paperwork and you're pre-approved, which is always really the best thing to do, then you can see about what kind of house you can afford. Because, and in the area, just because you can afford a house for maybe 150,000 in this area, then area over, you might be able to get a $250,000 home in another area. So look to where you feel comfortable. Look to the schools. Look to the environment. Um, Maybe where your family lives, if you want to be close to your family, if you want to be close to, if that's a church or synagogue or whatever if that is important to you, whether that's in the environment that is nearby. So there's various things. And then do you have somebody representing you? Because there you can have somebody to represent you in buying the home. And if you have an agent to help represent you, make sure that agent is looking out for your best interest, not just their bottom line. So, and what you are truly looking for. And then they can help you negotiate what would be best. And Emmanuel, as you know, this is a tight market now. So there's a lot of buyers out there because the interest rates are so low. But there's not a lot of supply. So just because that house is, offered at 250 in many areas, you're going to need to offer a bit more to make sure that you actually get that house. That's a few thoughts.
That's interesting. And for those who wants to sell, what are those things they should consider? Is it beneficial to have an agent or to do it themselves?
Well, again, if you've never sold a house before, you be surprised what's involved and how emotional you can get because that's your house or that's your property. And usually you always think that that house or that property is worth a whole lot more than it probably is. So I always say that it's best to get, again, an agent to represent you, and they can look at it as a third party and be strategic in pricing that. So what's best for the market? And maybe you thought it was worth, again, 250, but really the market now is so hot that they can get 300 for it. And you'd be selling yourself short by not having that agent. Now, of course, you're going to pay that commission to the agent, but it may be well worth it to you, especially with the time that you're going to expend if you have to do it yourself.
Hmm. So the agent will take care of all those sweat. You
Well,
just have to get your house ready for sale.
and you know what? There are lots of agents out there, and I suggest you interview people and ask them what they're going to do. Are they familiar with the area? And ask them what their strategy is to market your property.
And also, is it possible to negotiate with the agent as to their commission?
It is. It is. So it's usually a 6% commission, and the one who lists it will have half, and the one who brings the buyer will have half. But you can always negotiate anything. Remember that.
And talking about commission, who is responsible for paying the commission? Is it the seller or the buyer?
Well, the seller pays the commission. Remember, the seller usually puts that in the price of the home. So if they're going to sell that house for $300,000, they figure to themselves, if it's 6%, what they need to net, right? So if it's six and that's 18,000, so it's 300 less 18,000 is what they're going to net. So, and then they have
Thank you.
to consider taxes as well, possibly.
Thank you. In a situation where, let's say, a buyer makes an offer and seeking financing. Then in between the offer and acceptance and closing date, they were unable to complete the financing. Can the buyer, force the sale? Can they be sued?
Can the buyer or the seller force
Can
the sale?
can the seller force the sale if
Not.
the buyer
It
wasn't able to complete financing?
And it's a great question. You have to make sure that you put it in your contract, right? That so if it's subject to financing, then the buyer has the ability to get out. But if they don't put it in there, the seller could force the sale possibly. So,
And in situations where you're talking about contract, because when it comes to property and real estate, or as a lawyer, I do know that anything that has to do with property has to be in writing.
mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of paperwork involved. Do you advise that parties get their own attorneys, or is it something that their real estate agent can explain the legal paperwork to them?
Well, there's a fine line because the real estate agent cannot act as an attorney. So if it does get um, a little cumbersome, I'll say, then you're always, I always advise to seek the advice of an attorney as well. But most transactions can work just well enough with the real estate agent. And the real estate agent has to go through their broker as well. So the broker has to oversees the real estate agent. And so that helps um, the seller feel better about their transaction as well.
Okay. Now, I'm going to flip the script. So,
Okay.
in a situation where the seller changes their mind before closing, maybe because of emotional attachment to the house,
Right.
can the buyer force a sale?
Well, again, it just depends if it's in the contract. In fact, one of the properties I bought, the seller did do just that, but they put in their contract that they had an out if they decided within X amount of time they wanted to get out of the contract, they could. And when I ended up buying that property, I made sure that they didn't put that in my contract because I was very afraid that they would do that to me. And so it worked out well. But because I gave them, and this was a house, I gave them enough time to find another place, and they felt comfortable in closing on the transaction.
So, if you're out there, you're watching this or listening to this, you want to put your home for sale and you're not sure, tell your lawyer to put something in the contract. And if you want to make sure you get the sale of the property you love, make sure it's in there that they can opt out. Now, let's talk about home inspection. What is the benefit of getting the property inspected before closing?
Well, that's another way. You can get a home inspection. You can a contract that if you're a buyer, and it's always wise to get a home inspection. And in fact, it's interesting because down in Florida, with the condo that recently, uh, the horrific event with the condo falling in, now they're getting structural engineering to make sure that the structure is safe and sound. So it's always beneficial. You want to know what you're coming into on that house. You don't know if there are foundation problems. You don't know if they're termites. You don't know if the roof, if part of the roof is nice that you can see and part of it is about to fall in. So it's so beneficial to you all the way around. And it also gives you a negotiating tool at the end because you have time. There's a part where you can get out of the contract if you wish, or ask the seller to remedy certain issues. So you can ask them this if they would like to remedy these issues, then you still go along with the contract if they decide. And that's again another bargaining tool that you can do.
Okay. What happens in a situation where the contract says that the buyer is buying the house assets?
Well, that's it. No, there's nothing to discuss. It's as is. ASIS. That's it.
So, let's talk about home warranty.
Okay.
What is home warranty, and what is the benefit of having one?
Well, it's the seller often will take care of that for the buyer. It's for 1 year, and there are different home warranties. So your agent or yourself, if you're selling your property, will look into what they think is the best home warranty available. And it's basically another little carrot to provide to the buyer, just so they feel assured that the house is okay, and it provides remedies if certain things will go wrong, whether um, it's all particular to that contract. So whether it's the air conditioning unit or whatever it might be, the roof, whatever it might be, that it's still good. But everything is specific. It's always specific to the contract.
And what is the difference between home warranty and home insurance?
And home insurance,
Yes.
well, the home warranty will expire. That's a warranty through the company. Um, you will, the seller will say, hey, this is XYZ company, and we're providing you that this home warranty for the next 365 days. Home insurance is something you have to buy. When you buy the house, you have to have the insurance on the property, especially if you have a mortgage on it. You won't get a mortgage without the insurance. So
Okay. Is the requirement for home insurance, is it contractual with the mortgage company, or is it a legal requirement, just as the state requires you to have auto insurance?
um, I know if you have to have the insurance. I don't know exactly if it's mandated or not. It's wise to have. So just like renter's insurance, you don't have to have renter's insurance, but it's wise to have.
Okay. Now let's talk about, like, this seems like a law school question. In the event a property is destroyed between closing and in between the contract and closing, who is responsible for the loss, the buyer or the seller?
Well, the buyer hasn't bought it yet. So there you go. It's still the seller's house. So
Now,
now these are, so, I practiced with the real estate for a long time, since I've been on the bench for almost 6 years. So I appreciate these questions. It brings me back.
what is a homeowners association?
A homeowners association.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so that's when you have whether it be the condos or depending on where you live, or individual homes, could be a co-op depending on where you live, and you pay a fee to the homeowners to it's like an umbrella for all the homeowners in that, um, whether it's a building or little or development. Um, it's that section of that they provide. They might take care of the roads. They might take care of, you know, the snow removal, um, and they'll have, maybe there's a pool, maybe there's a tennis court, and they take care of that. They take care of the grass cutting. So that's what a homeowners. So if you live in a big condo unit, there'll be a homeowners association. You pay some money toward it, so they'll make sure that you don't have to cut the grass. So
Yeah. So in a situation where a buyer wants to buy, I don't know, development that has that association, do they have the option of opting out?
I would think not, but I would think not. But I don't do that. So usually, my real estate transactions have been really sparse in the last several years. So
Thank you. And you recently opened a studio selling artwork for residential and commercial buildings.
So,
What got you into the world of art?
oh, well, I love art. I love art. And prior to me taking the bench and being elected to as judge, when I was practicing attorney, um, I enjoyed my art, and I was in the short north one day, and I was walking there, and a young man was selling some art on the sidewalk, and I looked at it, and he was homeless, and it was very, very good. And so I ended up buying his art. I tried to then give him a job, and but he didn't want the job. And then um, I gave him some money for the artwork, of course, and then I tried to get him some housing because he was homeless. He was living in the park. So I said, "Let me help you," but he wouldn't take the help. So about 6 months later, I see him again, and he said he wanted to paint some more. And so what I did was I bought some canvas and I bought some wood at Lowe's, and we started working together. And my friend, a friend of mine and I entered this gentleman into the Columbus Arts Festival. And he was chosen as one of 11 emerging artists. And in total, there was like over 1,000 entries. We knew nothing about commercial art or anything like that. We just enjoyed what we liked up on the walls. And we set up a tent at the Columbus Arts Festival. We sold out of like everything, and we started selling for this gentleman. And then I met some other people that needed some help too, and I started selling for them as well, and we did really well. And I have to do a plug for Charles Penzone, because Mr. Penzone, they have artwork in their Short North studio. Used to be, and when I did this about 9 years ago, and they came to me and said, "Hey, if you'd like to show this gentleman's artwork, you can do it." And so we were supposed to be there like a month or two, and we ended up being there and showing his art, rotating the art, selling so much art for him for about 8 months. And I was able to put away money for him, for this gentleman, as a little nest egg, so he would have some money. I ended up getting him an apartment. He was out of the park, and he was doing well. So, and then he moved on and things transitioned. And then I ended up taking the bench. So I don't sell the art anymore, but I certainly do appreciate the art and the artist.
Wow, what a story of redemption. Now, and apart from even doing that, you've done real estate, you've sold art, you've changed lives. You also participated in making a documentary that won an Emmy for about the Holocaust. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, my father was a Holocaust survivor, and he was brought up in Poland and just outside of Krakow, Poland. And in 1939 is when the Germans invaded Poland, September 1st, 1939. My father was born in 1928. And at that point, his family was rounded up and put in a ghetto. And that's the small part of the town. And all the Jewish people were supposed to go in this one little area of town. And he lived there for about 2 years. So until he was about 13 and a half years old. They'd had no money. They lived on scraps, and he would routinely get on a German transport and go to work for a day, and then be given about not a loaf of bread, a slice of bread to bring back to his family. And he had um, three brothers and his parents. And one day he was picked up on this German transport and taken to his first concentration camp at 13 and a half. And he had never been on a cemetery. And his first job at the cemetery were to help undig the graves, because the Germans wanted the gold teeth. So at 13 and a half, he's taking the gold teeth out of the skeletons that the earth movers were digging up. And that was 1941. He went from concentration camp to concentration camp. And in 1945, when he was on a death march out of Auschwitz-Birkenau, he was eventually liberated by the Russians from the Germans. He was in 4 concentration camps, and his last concentration camp was Auschwitz-Birkenau, where very, very few survived. He was given a tattoo on his arm that said B2992, which meant Birkenau, and 2992. That's where he was in line. So he survived this horrible, horrible ordeal where he never saw his parents again or any of his family again. He had 6 aunts and uncles, and everybody was murdered. So he ended up, after the war, he was in a DP camp called a displaced persons camp. And he met somebody in Germany who ended up being a distant cousin. And so my father was going to go to Israel, and this cousin says, instead, why don't you come to America with me? And so he was sponsored by the United States as an orphan to come over to the United States. And he went to New York through the Bronx, and he was put in an orphanage. And when he was in the orphanage, he was playing ping pong, and he knew no English, but he was playing ping pong, and he said to his caseworker in such a way that he said, "What are those books over there?" And the caseworker said, "Well, those are phone books." And he said, "Well, maybe my family's already here waiting for me," because he always had hope. He always had hope that they were already here or somebody was here. The caseworker sent out some letters, and a letter came back from somebody saying, "You have family in Springfield, Ohio." So the person in Springfield, he went to go live with them. And then he lived with them. He lived with them for a little bit. And they said he was, I think, 20 years old at this time now, because he came to America like when he was 18. And people were signing up for the draft because there was this thing called the Korean conflict. So he signed up, and he was drafted on his 22nd birthday by the U.S. Army. And in I think it was 52, he was shipped over to what's called the European Theater. They said he'd probably be in Paris, but he wasn't in Paris. He was shipped over to now guard the Germans from the Russians in the Korean conflict. I mean, he had such a life. And, but we did this movie, getting back to your comment. My father never found his parents. They found out they were murdered. My father did a movie. And in fact, when we went to Poland, I found out about my father's brother, how he got murdered, when I eventually watched the movie, because I did not know. And we didn't set out the movie. We didn't set out to do this movie for anybody but ourselves. And then we thought, well, there's going to be deniers saying that the Holocaust never happened. So we thought, we had 15 hours of footage. We got it down to a half an hour so we could show it in the school system. And we showed it in the school system, and that the producer thought, let's put it on PBS if we could. So it showed on PBS for 2 years, and then the movie won an Emmy. And subsequent to that, my father wrote a book with somebody who could help him, translate his thoughts into writing. And we did that on about 10 years after we did the movie. We did the movie. Ironically, we went there like September 1st, 2001, came back September 7th, 2001, and we all know what happened on September 11th. So it was heart-wrenching, and my father's story of hope really permeated everything I am. And that's what brought me to be a criminal defense attorney, actually, is, to help people and to give them hope. And then I thought to myself, how could I even help more people possibly? And that would be to be a judge. And then when I got the opportunity to run and was elected, I thought, wow, this is my way of giving back to all those who never had any hope and their lives were taken away. So it's with gratitude that I sit on the bench to be able to do that. Yeah.
From the daughter of a Holocaust survivor who came to the United States without being able to speak or understand English, now you are sitting on the bench of a county in the United States. What a story. And what is the title of that documentary? And if, let's say, someone wants to watch that movie today, where can they see the movie?
Certainly. My father's name is Murray Ebner. It's Ebner. And the movie's called A Survivor's Journey. And you can actually just look it up on YouTube. So if you went and looked up Ebner and Holocaust survivor, not just survivor, but Holocaust survivor, you should be able to bring up the movie.
Thank you. And you are currently seeking re-election for your current seat.
I am.
Why should the people keep you?
Well, I was a criminal defense attorney for over 22 years. I've been sitting on the bench for about 5.5 years. And my work to help those in Franklin County is not done. I appreciate the opportunity to help others. And the court is not just a place to punish, it's really a place to educate as well, and to help and to give hope. There was a gentleman today in my courtroom that he came for his case, and he was so scared to miss it. He walked to court, and I so appreciated that. And he walked a couple miles to get to court. And he was an older man. And I said, do you have a way to get home? He goes, no, I'll just have to walk back. And so I said, we'll facilitate it, that we will give you a couple bus passes because it's helping people. And then we have programs and paperwork that we can give to individuals to help them and to help him pay his rent. He's having a problem with paying his rent. And so I was happy to actually help him to do this. So this wouldn't be just to show up for naught. And he was able to get services. So he was very, very thankful today, this morning. Very thankful.
Thank you for doing that. This is just another example. Within 40 minutes, you helped a homeless guy who is a good artist to, sell. You bring him up to where it got recognized. You're able to sell his work. Now you've got a gentleman walking into your courtroom who walked miles to get there, and you provided transportation. What are those things that inspires you to just want to go out there and help?
What are the things?
Yes.
Oh, just when you can help somebody, um, in the Talmud, it says, there's a saying, if you save one life, it's as if you save the world. And I think that's what we're here for. We pay it forward. My father always said, this is the best country in the world. We're so lucky to be here. And I don't take that for granted. I feel so lucky to be here and to be a part of it and to be helpful to somebody. I had somebody in December. They were on probation to me. And I helped them along and I helped them along. And they finally were able to get off probation. And the gentleman says, Judge, am I off probation? I go, sir, you're off probation. You no longer have to come to court, anything. And he goes, well, Judge, I have something for you. And that's always a little scary. But when somebody says that, and he brought out such a huge bouquet of flowers. And he goes, nobody's ever helped me and worked with me like you did. And, I was just so thrilled and that I was able to help him. So it's little things. I had a lady who didn't have a driver's license, and the prosecutor offered, if you get your driver's license, the court may dismiss the case. Was that offer? And she kept coming back to court, and she never had a driver's license. Said, I will follow the recommendation. I will dismiss your case if you get that driver's license. So she came to me several months later, and I go, ma'am, do you have the driver's license? And she goes, Judge, I never liked you. I didn't understand why you were doing this to me. I really, really resented you. But I didn't realize you were doing it for my own good. And I never realized how a license can help me. And she goes, thank you for changing my life, is what she said. And so that's why I do it.
Thank you. And how can people reach you? If they want to know more about you, where can they go?
Oh, appreciate that. That's if they want to do www.ebnerforjudge.com, or can look up Ebner for Judge, any of the sorts that'll get you there. So we're on Facebook, and we appreciate any support we can get. The election is this November 2nd, and we hope that people come out and vote, and hopefully vote for me, because my job is not done, and I look forward to the next 6 years.
Thank you, Judge Ebner, for coming onto Legal Angle. It's been a wonderful time.
Thank you, Emmanuel. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. And for those of you watching at home or listening to this as a podcast or in any other medium, go to ebnerforjudge.com And for the people of Franklin County, you have a judge who likes to give hope and who likes to help. Until next time, thank you for watching. Stay blessed.